I'm 65 years old, and I want you to look at me. Really look at me. I'm sitting in a small apartment, one bedroom, cracked walls, a heater that barely works in winter. I can hear my neighbors arguing through these thin walls almost every night. This is my life now. But it wasn't supposed to be like this. My name is David, and I'm here to tell you about the biggest mistake of my life. Not a mistake where I did something wrong. No. A mistake where I did nothing at all. Where I let fear make my decisions. Where I chose to stay safe and lost everything. Let me take you back to 1993. I was 39 years old, married to my wife, Janet. We had 2 kids, a boy, Thomas, who was 12, and a girl, Rebecca, who was 9. We lived in a decent house in Ohio, nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, small backyard. Enough. I worked as an accountant at a mid-sized manufacturing company. Decent salary, good benefits, stable, safe, predictable. I'd been there for 15 years, same desk, same routine. Clock in at 8, clock out at 5, go home, repeat. But I had a friend. His name was Marcus. We went to college together. He worked at the same company as me. Same department, same cubicle area. We'd have lunch together every day, talk about sports, family, life. Marcus was different from me, though. He was a dreamer, always talking about opportunities, about taking risks, about building something bigger. I was careful. My father raised me to be careful. He always said, "David, get a stable job. Don't take risks. Risks are for fools who end up losing everything." And I believed him. Then one day in March of 1993, something happened that changed everything. Our company announced they were downsizing, moving operations to Mexico. They were offering early retirement packages to senior employees, and they were letting go of middle management. Marcus and we weren't getting fired. Not yet. But we saw the writing on the wall. The company was dying, slowly. Maybe we had 5 years, maybe 10, but it was dying. One afternoon, Marcus came to my desk. He was excited, more excited than I'd ever seen him. He said, "David, I've been thinking. What if we don't wait for them to fire us? What if we leave now and start our own firm?" I laughed. I actually laughed at him. I said, "Marcus, we're accountants. We're not entrepreneurs." But he didn't laugh. He pulled out a folder. He'd done research, real research. He showed me numbers, projections. He'd found 3 potential clients already, small businesses that needed accounting services. He'd talked to a lawyer about setting up an LLC. He said, "David, we've been doing this for 15 years. We know every system, every loophole, every strategy. We could offer these small businesses better service at better prices than the big firms. We could build something real." I remember looking at those papers, and for just a moment, I felt it. Excitement, hope, the possibility of something different. But then the fear came. The fear said, "What if it fails? What if you lose everything? What if you can't pay your mortgage? What if your kids suffer because of your stupid decision?" I told Marcus I needed to think about it. That night I went home and talked to Janet. I showed her Marcus's proposal. I told her everything. And you know what she said? She said, "David, what do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know. It's risky." She said, "Everything is risky. Staying at that company is risky too if they're downsizing." But I could hear the worry in her voice. I could see it in her eyes. She was scared too. We had a mortgage, car payments, kids who would need college funds someday. She said, "I'll support whatever you decide, but just think about it carefully." I thought about it for 2 weeks. And every day the fear got louder. What if we failed? What if I couldn't find clients? What if I embarrassed myself? What if people laughed at me? What if I let my family down? Marcus kept pushing. He said, "David, I need your answer. If you're in, we do this together. If you're not, I'm doing it anyway, but I'd rather have you with me. You're the best accountant I know." And I said no. I said, "Marcus, I can't. I have a family. I have responsibilities. I can't take that risk. I'm sorry." He was disappointed. I could see it in his face. But he nodded. He said, "I understand. I really do. But I have to try. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering, what if?" 2 weeks later, Marcus quit. He left the company, started his own accounting firm, Marcus and Associates. I stayed, safe, secure, afraid. And that one decision made out of fear, it destroyed my entire life. The first year after Marcus left, I barely heard from him. I was still at the company, still in my cubicle, still safe. But I thought about him. Every single day, I thought about him. I wondered if he was struggling, part of me. And I'm ashamed to admit this. Part of me wanted him to fail. Because if he failed, it would prove I made the right choice. It would prove that staying was smart. But he didn't fail. After about 18 months, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop. He looked different, more confident, more alive. I asked him how the business was going, trying to sound casual, trying to hide my curiosity. He smiled and said, "David, it's growing. I have 12 clients now. I had to hire 2 people. I'm actually looking for office space. 12 clients. In 18 months. I felt something in my chest. Something heavy. Something bitter. I congratulated him. Forced a smile. Went back to my cubicle the next day. 5 years passed. The company I worked for kept downsizing. They cut benefits, froze salaries. The atmosphere was miserable. Everyone knew we were on a sinking ship. But I stayed. Because leaving felt scarier than staying. I'd see Marcus occasionally, around town, at the grocery store, at our kids' school events. And every time I saw him, he looked better. New car, nice clothes, confident smile. I heard through mutual friends that his business was booming, that he had 50 clients now, that he'd opened a second office in Columbus. And every time I heard about his success, something inside me died a little bit more. When I was 52, the inevitable happened. The company shut down completely, closed all U.S. operations. Everyone got laid off. I was 52 years old, no job, limited savings, and a resume that showed I'd worked at one company for 28 years. I applied everywhere, sent out hundreds of resumes, got maybe 10 interviews. Most companies wanted younger employees, cheaper employees. I finally got hired at a small firm, but the salary was 40% less than what I was making before. We had to downsize, sold our house, moved into a smaller rental. The kids were in college by then, and we'd saved some money, but not enough. They had to take loans, work part-time jobs. Janet never complained, never once said, "I told you so." But I could see the stress on her face, the worry lines, the gray hair coming in faster, and I could see the question in her eyes, the question she never asked, but I knew she was thinking, what if you had said yes to Marcus? I worked at that small firm for 10 years, hated every day of it. The boss was a tyrant. The work was boring. I was just a number, just another employee waiting for retirement. When I was 62, Janet got sick. Diabetes. It got bad quickly. She needed medication, special food, doctor visits. Our insurance was terrible. The copays alone were killing us. I had to keep working, couldn't afford to retire. The small pension I'd built up over the years wasn't enough. Then one day, I saw something that broke me completely. I was at the grocery store, struggling with our budget, trying to decide if I could afford the nicer cut of meat for Janet or if I had to buy the cheap one again. And I saw Marcus. He was with his wife. They were laughing, shopping without looking at prices, just happy, free. He saw me, came over, genuine smile on his face. "David, how are you, man? It's been years." We talked for a few minutes. He told me about his business. He had 200 employees now, multiple offices across 3 states. He'd just taken his family on a month-long trip to Europe. He asked about me, and I lied. I said everything was fine, great actually. But he could see. He could see the cheap clothes, the tiredness in my eyes, the weight of everything. Before he left, he said something that haunts me to this day. He said, "David, you were always the better accountant. You could have built something even bigger than what I have. I always wondered why you said no." I didn't have an answer, because the truth was too painful to say out loud. I said no because I was afraid. That's it. That's the only reason. Not because I wasn't capable. Not because the opportunity wasn't real. Not because it was a bad idea. Just because I was afraid. Janet died when I was 65. The diabetes led to complications, kidney failure. She fought for 2 years, but in the end, her body gave up. I spent our entire savings on her medical care, used up my retirement, sold everything we had. When she died, I had nothing. No wife, no savings, a small Social Security check, and a rental apartment. My kids, they love me, but they're busy. Thomas lives in California, works in tech, doing well. Rebecca is in Boston, married, 2 kids of her own. They call on holidays, visit maybe once a year. I don't blame them. I gave them a childhood of be careful and don't take risks. I taught them fear. And now they live far away, living their safe, predictable lives. I'm 65 now. I work part-time at a tax preparation service during tax season. The rest of the year, I live on Social Security. It's not much, but it's enough to keep the lights on and food on the table. Every morning I wake up in this small apartment. And every morning I think about that day in 1993. That conversation with Marcus. That moment when I chose fear over courage. And I think about all the lives I could have lived. If I had said yes, maybe I'd be retired now. Really retired. Maybe I'd be traveling with Janet. Maybe she'd still be alive because we could have afforded better health care, better doctors, better everything. Maybe my kids would have learned from me that taking risks is okay, that building something is worth trying, that fear is not a good enough reason to say no. Maybe I'd have stories to tell my grandchildren about building a business, about taking chances, about living fully. But I don't have those stories. I have one story. The story of a man who was too afraid to try. Last month I saw in the newspaper that Marcus sold his company. Sold it for $47 million. $47 million. The opportunity he offered me in 1993. I would have owned half of that. I sat in my apartment and I cried. I cried for the life I could have had, for the man I could have been, for Janet, who deserved better, for my kids, who deserved a father who showed them courage instead of fear. I have one friend left in this world. His name is George. He lives in the apartment next door. He's 78, widowed, retired factory worker. We have coffee together most mornings. A few weeks ago, I finally told him everything, the whole story. Marcus, the opportunity, my choice. He listened quietly. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "David, the saddest stories aren't about people who tried and failed. Those people have adventure. They have experiences. They have, at least I tried. The saddest stories are about people who never tried at all. People who let fear steal their entire lives." He was right. And I am that sad story. You want to know what the worst part is? It's not the money. It's not even the financial struggle. The worst part is knowing that I had everything I needed, the skills, the opportunity, the support, the talent, everything except one thing, courage. And because I lacked that one thing, I lost everything else. I watch people on TV, successful people, happy people, people living interesting lives, and I wonder how many of them were scared when they started. How many of them felt the same fear I felt, but did it anyway? All of them, probably. Every single one. Because fear is normal. Fear is human. Fear is the price of admission for anything worth doing. But I let fear make my decisions. I let fear become my master. I let fear tell me who I was and what I was capable of. And fear lied to me. Fear said, "You'll fail." But I'll never know if that's true because I never tried. Fear said, "You'll lose everything." But I lost everything anyway, just slower, more painfully. Fear said, "Stay safe." But there is no safety. Janet still got sick. The company still closed. Life still fell apart. The safety I chose was an illusion. And I traded my dreams for an illusion. So let me tell you something. You, watching this right now, you who might be facing an opportunity, a decision, a chance to do something different. If you're afraid, that's okay. That's normal. That means it matters. That means it's real. But don't let fear make your decision. Don't let fear steal your life the way it stole mine. Because I'm 65 years old, and I live in a one-bedroom apartment with cracked walls. I work part-time to survive. I watch TV shows about people living the life I could have lived. And every single day, I think about that moment in 1993 when Marcus asked me to take a chance. And every single day, I wish I could go back and say yes, but I can't. Time doesn't work that way. Life doesn't give you do-overs. You get one life, one chance, one opportunity to be brave when it matters. Marcus took his chance. He built an empire. He traveled the world. He provided an amazing life for his family. He created jobs for 200 people. He made a difference. And me? I stayed in my cubicle. I played it safe. I let fear win. Now he's worth $47 million, living his retirement in peace and abundance. And I'm here, alone, broke, filled with regret. The question you have to ask yourself is this. In 30 years, do you want to be the person who tried? Or do you want to be me? The person who was too afraid to try and has to live with that knowledge every single day. Don't be me. Please. Don't let fear rob you of the life you could have, the person you could become, the impact you could make. Because fear will always be there. It will always have reasons. It will always whisper, "What if you fail?" But the real question is, what if you succeed? What if you're capable of more than you think? What if the opportunity is real? What if you're stronger than your fear? You'll never know unless you try. And trust me, living with, "I wonder what would have happened," is so much worse than living with, "At least I tried." I'm 65 years old. I have maybe 10, maybe 15 years left if I'm lucky. And I will spend every single one of those years knowing I could have had a different life, a better life, a life worth living. All because I was too afraid to say yes. Don't make my mistake. Say yes. Take the chance. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Because the life you save might be your own.